Executive Director of the Metro Sports Authority, and absolutely we can live within the proposed budget.
Thank you.
Today I have with me Monica Faulknerson in the back. She is our Director of Administration. I also have Doug Scopel from the Nashville Sounds, Steve Underwood, the CEO of the Tennessee Titans, and Janine Kaufman, the CFO of the Tennessee Titans. They're with me today.
Thank you.
Just very quickly, a recap of where we are. Our budget looks very similar to the budget you've seen over the last 3 years. We've had very little changes. Ultimately, after the 3% budget cut piece we did for at the request of the finance director, we ultimately received a $44,300 increase to our budget, but all of that falls outside of anything that's discretionary related to what we would do with the money. Most of that money is insurance related because we've added 2 new facilities to our inventory. Within the last fiscal year, obviously, we opened the Ford Ice Center out in Antioch, a fantastic project. Many of the council members were present for the opening that happened last fall. In April, we had even more council members come out for the opening of First Tennessee Park. And those 2 facilities are what are more directly related to the increase in insurance. So we've increased in the last fiscal year by 50% our inventory of properties. And we're still doing that with the same staff, and we're doing that with the same budget. I'll brag for a second on the Tennessee Titans. One of the things that has been time and again since I've been up here, both in the mayor's office and as the director of the Sports Authority, is the challenge to the team to utilize LP Field more. Not only do they utilize the field 300 days a year for different activities and events, both outside on the field but also inside. But in the last year, we've seen 3 very large events take place. The One Direction concert last year, the Rolling Stones, which are coming up in a couple weeks, be a fantastic sellout show. And then obviously at the 4th of July this year, they're going to have the U.S. Men's National Soccer Team. So 3 large events outside of football games, either by the Titans, TSU, and then obviously the CMA Awards. That means that, barring the Ford Ice Center or ballpark numbers, 3 million people attended an event related to the Sports Authority. And so we're very proud of that, and we're really proud of what we do. The arena folks were unable to be here today due to some conflicts, but to brag on them for a second, they are the Arena of the Year. That's the first time, Mr. Chairman, that award has been given to a facility that's not been on the East or West Coast. They have had year over year larger and larger revenues and larger attendance. Obviously, we kicked off the SEC tournament this year, which was just a huge event. That's going to be a multi-year event every spring, and we had a big time for that. In fact, they ran out of Budweiser down on Broadway. So, our event impacts downtown and many sales in both hotels and restaurants and bars. And it was a huge season for the Preds. We can't forget that. We had a fantastic run, made that playoff after a few years of not being there. And so with the arena, there are two big things that were new projects this past fiscal year, and one of those was the opening of the Lexus Lounge downstairs and the new team store, which obviously opens up some revenue opportunities to the outside of the arena there on 5th Avenue. As we look forward, obviously, big year next January, we'll host the 2016 NHL All-Star Game, and those preparations are well underway. So with those comments, I'll leave it at that and open it for comments.
Thank you. We'll open up the floor for questions. Councilman Tigard.
Thank you, Toby, for being here. If I could ask, I guess, Mr. Underwood some questions concerning Titans.
Mr. Underwood, the microphone is hot. And
thank you for being here.
Surely.
Obviously, the Phil Williams story on Channel 5 on the underreporting of tickets and the mismatch of what's reported to the league and whatnot caused concern. I understand there's an audit underway now. If you could give us an update and basically tell us how a situation like this could occur.
Let me get our Chief Financial Officer here, okay. Councilman Janine Kaufman. Well, keep in mind, our ticket office is run autonomously from the rest of our offices. We did have some irregularities. We found those on our own. We self-reported those both to the Sports Authority and to Metro Finance and to the league, and then began looking into the reasons for the irregularities. We lost some employees in the ticket office. If you're asking me why we would have irregularities reported in connection with our own internal affairs, I'm not able to answer that question. Those employees don't work for us anymore. If you're asking how it happened that we didn't catch it, it's not always easy to detect things when you're selling several 100,000 tickets a year.
Well, I mean, to me, I understand where you're coming from, and I know that you're not the party responsible, but when you report to the league a sellout for 100 and X games in a row, and you report to the government and to the citizens and the taxpayers that fund the stadium that, no, actual attendance is this, and this is what we're going to base our ticket tax on, and there's a huge discrepancy there, I just don't understand how anyone could think you could get away with that.
Well, I'm not sure I understand the premise of your question. Are you suggesting that we didn't sell those games out?
I'm suggesting that the city is due a $3 ticket tax on certain tickets that are in that stadium, and someone in your organization has admitted that that figure is not correct.
That's correct. We have admitted that. We admitted it in January as soon as we discovered it. And we are continuing the investigation and internal audit to find out what additional money we owe on tickets that were actually sold. And if we're not able to determine whether the tickets were sold, we're just going to go ahead and pay the user fee, even though we can't be sure whether or not the tickets were actually sold as opposed to being comped or given away on a complimentary basis.
Okay.
We will err in favor of the metropolitan government.
That is great to hear for this body. All right. The other issue that came out in this report had to do with what I would consider less than arm's length transaction to the broker and the way military tickets were this, that, and the other. Do you have any comments on that relationship?
Well,
and will that relationship continue with that broker?
I think we're unsure about whether or not we'll continue relationships with any brokers at this point. It's a little early in our ticket selling process. Again, Councilman, I can't tell you why people who work for us made errors in their reporting to us. Those are questions that we need to direct to them, and they don't work for us anymore. What I do know is that our own staff discovered those irregularities. We immediately self-reported both to the metropolitan government and to the Sports Authority and to our league. And we intend to continue the process of figuring out as much as we can about what went wrong and correcting it just as soon as we are able. I think Janine may have some preliminary numbers about what all that is, but we would prefer to wait until we're absolutely certain about how much it is. And I think in your profession you can understand that.
Sure. I guess
among the things we told Phil when he was making his report is the notion that we would underpay the ticket tax is counterintuitive. The ticket tax works to our benefit. It works to the metropolitan government's benefit. It works to the benefit of everyone who uses that facility. We gain nothing by underreporting because that money is devoted back to the building that we call home, the building that we moved here to occupy. We don't have any interest in underreporting or underpaying the tax. And we reported that to him, but of course he didn't report that to you.
Okay. I'm just, you know me as blunt. I'm just going to ask this as blunt as I can.
Feel free, Councilman. It's quite all right.
How important is the Titans image to the citizens of Nashville in your mind?
Critical. It is the bedrock of our existence, that people here believe that we pay the bills that we owe, we pay all the taxes that we owe. We remit millions of dollars in taxes to various agencies every year, roughly $3 million a year to the metropolitan government in user fees alone. We pay almost $10 million to the state in various excise taxes a year. We are good taxpayers. We don't have any problem with being audited. We've made clear to the finance director, to Bob Lackey, to everyone who's asked, feel free to audit. We welcome audits. We don't have a problem with being audited. We pay what we owe, and we provide all those numbers to them every year. We have our outside CPAs do an internal audit of us. We conduct our own internal audits. That's how we found these irregularities. They were found by us, not by someone outside.
Well, different groups, different peoples have different experiences and needs, and for the most part, spectators at LP Field are treated to a good experience. I know our tourists in town next week for the CMAs will have a great experience. I know when Councilman Pardue goes for the one boy's concert there, or the boy band, or the Rolling Stones, or whatever the next concert that he goes to, he will have a great experience. I want to relate an experience to you from a different perspective.
All right.
4 years ago, I went to officials at that stage, in charge at that point, along with Coach Donnelly, a Hall of Fame football coach, who's the director of Backfield in Motion. And we had a proposal for the Titans to allow 9 and 10-year-old kids to have the experience of walking on the field at LP Field and actually playing 25 minutes and their picture taken and all this experience. And over 2,000 kids came in. This was a fundraiser for Backfield in Motion and School Gardens here in Davidson County, put on by 2 nonprofits.
Yes.
The next year, when Walter Overton was representing you up here, and I relayed the positive experience of kids that were still talking and parents that were still talking about walking out the runway that Peyton Manning would be walking out in a couple of weeks. And those kids' eyeballs lit up, and they were great. And I was told then that event was no longer important to the Titans, and this event maybe could happen every couple, 3 years, but it was not a priority to the Titans. How am I supposed to justify anything that goes on when that is the type of experience that I personally have had?
Councilman, I don't know who with our organization would have said that to you, but you need to ask me. I'll be glad to answer and tell you that provided we can make it work scheduling-wise, we'd love to host events like that.
To me, it was the home run publicity, and the event, as good as it was for those kids, there were still flaws. For instance, when we asked, there was a scrimmage during the day and the players were there, I said, any chance that we can have some rookies set up a table and sign autographs for these kids? No, no, we can't do that. It was a great experience, but it could have been better, but then the rug was pulled out from under us. So consider this my ask, and consider that...
my answer is yes.
That I will be with you and get with Coach Donnelly here shortly and see if this is something that we can resurrect.
I'll have Walter or Bob Flynn, our Vice President of Facilities, call you tomorrow.
That would be great.
And we'll get it worked out. I'm sorry that you had a negative experience about asking in the past. That isn't the Titan way.
It's in our best interest for your organization to be successful, but there's this and other things that have happened have blemished the organization, and I'm confident that your statement here is that we're willing to make the steps.
I offer my unconditional apology.
Thank you.
Council Lady Weiner.
Thank you, Chair. May I readdress back here? Thank you. First of all, I'm sorry I walked in late. Charlie stole my thunder because I was going to ask about the Backfield in Motion, because one of the 2 groups that helps to put this on is the Bellevue Women's Club, near and dear to my heart. So thank you for offering to get back in touch with us, and Charlie and I will both.
It will happen, I guarantee it.
Okay, fabulous. Charlie and I will both be on your doorstep.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Mr. Compton, seeing no other members in the queue, that concludes your presentation. We certainly appreciate you and all the members of the different sports authority of Nashville, and thank you all for being here, and appreciate all you do.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.